a possible executive session.
I have something.
Yes.
The planning board, the judge reversed the decision, and the planning board now has to move on to the next chapter. And in light of the fact that it's been offered that the planning board should have a couple of members removed, appealing to the select board, I'd either like to have either a vote tonight or put on the agenda a vote of confidence from the select board about the job that the planning board has done. Because we have to move forward now.
You want to address that? Yes, sir.
See, that I've been here the longest. When I first came in here as a selectman, the planning board, what is it, Bob and Shane, correctly. And as we went along, we tried to build up a planning board. And we have. So I gotta say, because I've been in more meetings than most of you people have, this planning board is better than any other planning boards that I've sat around. And to sit here and assassinate them is wrong. But if you got something to say about somebody, do it in a nice way. But all you people keep on talking about the people of Clifton. It's some people in Clifton that don't agree with you. Some people in Clifton don't agree with us. You never say it's all of you. Sound like it's all the people. It's not all the people.
Excuse me, are you talking to me?
No, I'm
Ed?
just looking at it. I have to turn my head because I can't see out of that.
Checking.
So I would venture to say that the two of the members that are on this planning board are on there because I brought their names to the select board. And I don't want to see any of the people on this board leave. It's a good board. I hate to see any of the select people that might not be on leave. You know, it's a shame that we have to wait for something that aggravates a citizen in this town to have people come to the select meetings. I've sat here time after time. We used to do 2 meetings a month. Nobody shows up, So you kind of wonder what they think about it. All right, so we had a disagreement between the people in the town of Clifton. Some people in the town of Clifton one way, some people in the town of Clifton the other way. That's good for government. But as far as the planning board, I disagree with removing anybody. You know, if you don't like what's going on, take out your papers and get elected. That's what I did. That's all I have to say.
Madam Chair, could I respond to that?
Nancy's asked first.
I've been in a position to work with planning boards on several occasions. I would say that the planning board here in Clifton is as good and better than any that I've ever worked with before. We're all human beings. We're not perfect. Mistakes do get made. I don't believe any person on this board deliberately did anything to jeopardize their position, and they have my vote.
Motion tonight or nomination?
I have no problem making a motion. I make a motion that I don't know how I make a motion. I don't know how I make a motion because I agree with everything that was said. I think nobody's perfect. I think this board has certainly worked diligently and very hard, both select board and planning board. They know this ordinance front and back and know its deficits and are working to try to fix that. I have all the confidence in the world that they're working on that. I think they're a good group to go back to the drawing board, not planning board, because they are, but to try to fix whatever the judge has asked us to look at or remanded that was not adequately done. I certainly have a motion that I want to say I stand behind them and offer my vote of confidence. That's not really a motion. Is it? Okay. All right, then that's my motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
It's not like we have people backed up to the door trying to get into these positions, you know.
There's a position for an alternate, if anybody's interested.
We've had things out there for alternates off and on ever since I've been on the board, and nobody ever comes forward to, and I can tell you right now, of all the positions there are in town politics, being on the planning board is the most difficult.
I'm upset, I'm just watching you, it upsets me. I don't know how you do it.
I'd be a select person any day, so I'd be a planning board.
Well, I would certainly encourage people in the town to know that this truly is a thankless job. We do get a stipend, but when positions open up, we truly have to beg and plead for people to submit papers, to take an active stand in government. That's what I did when we moved to this town full-time. Very divergent from my 45 years of nursing, but it's a big commitment, and it's something that we all take very seriously. So I welcome anybody to think about taking an office. I would encourage it.
Too late, one more thing I'd like to say. The only people here tonight that are upset with the planning board are the people on the task force and the people who sue the town. And if there are a lot of people in this town that are upset with us, why aren't they here?
I'm sorry, but as a matter of procedure, I think you opened the meeting for public comment, and then Paula asked to make a comment, and she's been excluded. So I know there's a motion on the
I was
table
just
in the
about to
middle of
remind them
public comment.
again that I'd asked to make a comment.
Yes, when Nancy was done, it was Paula's turn.
There's a motion on the table. And
Yes, and now we're in
seconded.
discussion before we vote on it. No, we haven't
You've
voted
got a
on
motion,
it.
so the discussion is open.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
You have a second.
Yes, I had seconded it. It was in discussion. Now it's Paula's turn.
Okay. I've lost track if you voted on that or not,
No, we
but
have not voted. We're in
Even if you have it,
discussion before the vote.
what I would encourage you to look and find as many resources as you can to assist the planning board in the future. That's where I think that you have to keep, I know you guys watched what went on, but they need resources. They need, like you said, it was very complicated. It's very much out of the realm of anything that we anticipated when we were starting to write the ordinance. It's out of the realm of anything that those planning board members anticipated when they went on that board. And there was, I feel bad that the ordinance did not go through legal review. That's what we wrote, I wrote a grant to get money for legal review. That's the biggest regret that I have, is that we did not have a legal review of that ordinance before we started using it. And people, you really have to look really hard at each one of these changes, these amendments, when they come up, and get legal advice. As we've gone through the last few months, I've read a number of court precedent, whatever those are called, the decisions that relate to planning boards, and if you don't know anything about that, you're just in over your head if you don't know what the courts have found, and I'm sure Mr. Sobchak will help you with that. And I just find it hard to believe that you guys don't want to make some improvement in the system after you've been into court and lost a court case, that you don't, in some place in your mind, that you're not saying, boy, we got to do something different as we go forward from here. And I just encourage you, it doesn't mean that you did a horrendously bad job. It doesn't mean that anybody was dishonest or anything like that. It just means that it didn't work out. You better try something else as you go forward. You better look at stuff a little bit closer.
Maybe that's why the state has laws that covers everything in this ordinance, is for towns like us that don't have the manpower to have something this sophisticated. Maybe we ought to repeal the whole ordinance
I'm
and
with
just
you. I'm with you,
go by
John.
and just go by the state regulations.
I'm with you, John. I mean,
But you're the one that was involved with writing it. You're
Well,
the
I
one that
was
told us
here.
we needed it.
I-
We need this to protect this town.
GDN. gullible, naive, and that's the way I was, you know. And I've learned a lot, and I would hope other people have too. And
Okay, thank you, Paula. Peter?
Two things. I really wouldn't minimize the significance of the Clifton Task Force on Well, since I've been here 25 years, there's never been a group organized to consistently try to affect town policy on any matter. And the task force has. They've consistently gone to the meetings that mattered and tried to raise their voice and objections and influence the boards. So they are the people that are most affected, you know. And there are people in town who, yeah, they think the wind would be a great idea when they're told that maybe their taxes will go down and stuff, you know. But this is a huge matter for a certain part of our town. Second, John's comments as a owner of Pisgah about repeal the ordinance. What that means to me is the developer would love, as Freedom did, as the town of Freedom did, to repeal the ordinance entirely and go by the state ordinance. That would be a coup for the developer. I want you to know that. It would leave the residents of your town absolutely protectionless. So just understand that's what Freedom went through, and boy, did people suffer there. So, you know, that's a way to get it done. If you can do that, you know, then you can force this through, and boy, are the residents of your town hurting.
Julie, can I say something? What you would like to do when you're against the wind project is...
Excuse me, are you allowed to speak because you're not from Clifton?
She just said I could.
And that doesn't take a board vote or anything?
I make a motion.
Well, excuse me, why don't you finish, is this all discussion
Yeah.
related to,
The motion.
to the motion, there's a motion on the table that hasn't been voted on, and the discussion's scattering all over the place now.
The motion on the table from Carol was that we approve the planning board members and keep them as is. And I had seconded that. So all in favor? Opposed or abstained? Abstained?
Can't vote. You can tell them why, I don't know why.
Well, I voted. It had nothing to do with wind. Okay. Does anyone have a problem with Paul speaking tonight?
You would like to draw parallels between what happened in Freedom to what happened in Clifton.
Are you speaking to me?
I'm speaking to everybody.
Said
Do
you.
you want, are you going to interrupt me while I try to talk?
I need to know if I'm being addressed.
I'm talking to everybody.
Okay.
You would like to draw parallels between Freedom and Clifton. But I can tell you, after spending almost 5 years working on this project, that there is not another project east of the Mississippi that has the setbacks that we have from people's residences. I also know from another acoustical engineer who's worked on over 50 projects, after looking into our project, that it was the very best project he had ever seen, save one project in Alaska that was on an island 2.5 miles off the coast, uninhabited. So from a perspective of how good a project like this is, you have to, you can't just say 1,200 feet or 1,000 feet what's in Freedom compared to 4,500 feet away. So whether you took this ordinance and started all over again and went with the state ordinance, nothing's changing up there. We're still with these setbacks of 4,500, better than any east of the Mississippi. the problems, like Eric Johns brought up, with the sound was identified very early in the project by your acoustical engineer, David Hessler. And he made it very clear that the issues that Judge Horton addressed and said, you know, this isn't what the Clifton Land Use Ordinance says, David Hessler addressed those as well. And he said they cannot be done. They're impossible. So to get mileage out of that and say the planning board did something wrong and the select board did something wrong, when we've known all along that that part of the ordinance, which was drafted from a different town, was impossible, you can't then point your finger and say you did it wrong. You're just getting mileage out of something that couldn't be done.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
could I ask a question?
Sure.
I guess what's foremost in my mind is, so what happens after tonight? So where are we in this process? So what happens next? Who's doing what next? What happens in the January planning board meeting? What, is there an application from Pisgah Mountain?
I have no idea.
Is there an application of record in this town? Is it going to be on the agenda in January?
We don't know.
You don't know.
Rick isn't
Not
here.
tonight, we don't know.
So we can assume that we should not have to be,
The thing that I know that will happen next is that the Pisgah Mountain and the town would need to decide whether they intend to appeal that decision or not.
well, that's what I was under the impression that needed to be done by January 1st approximately.
Well, there's a deadline.
And so that would be before this board meets again. When are they going to meet and discuss that?
January 8th is the board.
Are you talking about the select board?
Yes.
They're meeting tonight.
We're having an executive session after the meeting to discuss that.
Will John Williams be in that
No,
meeting?
Sean and I will not be there, Paula.
You will be in that meeting?
No. we
No,
will
you will not. Okay, I'm sorry. Be-
Because I had recused myself a long time ago from it.
Okay. All right, then let's get this meeting on. Let's you get into your executive session.
Any other public comment?
Can I make
Food was good.
I also don't live in town, and if you want to pre-approve me, that would be great.
You can speak.
My name's Logan Perkins, and I don't live in Clifton. I was living in Eddington, but I just recently moved. But I guess I want to make a couple observations as an outside observer. And first I'll say that I grew up in a really small town in upstate New York, and my father's been the town attorney there since the year I was born. So I'm sympathetic to the processes that you guys have all been working through. And I certainly cast no aspersions on any one person's character, but I will say that as an observer, that as in a democracy, we create procedures that are designed to protect people's rights and create equality of experience and equality of outcome for all people. And when we don't enforce those procedures, we create inequality, right? We allow inequality, or we open the door to inequality. And sometimes that is a very clear and specific procedural thing that has to happen. And I observed it happen just tonight, and I apologize for interrupting, but I said, Paula was on stack, and then a motion got put on the table, and then the motion got seconded, and then there was discussion, and then Paula got to speak. While that motion was still pending, another person asked to speak, and he got told to wait till the motion was going to be over. Now that's unequal treatment of those two comments from the public with regards to the process of the motion on the table. To me, that presents a problem. It creates an opportunity for inequality, and it creates an opportunity for people to observe that difference and then become concerned, right? And that concern, actually, and that fear of unequal treatment, or that fear of inequality, I think drives more conflict than is necessary. and is unfortunate, right, when that happens, because as a fundamental reality, I think we all come to a public meeting like this with the concept that we live in a democracy that is founded on the concept of one person, one vote, and we all come here as equals. And we should all have an equal voice and an equal ability to participate in whatever process is unfolding on any given day. So I guess I would just say that as an observer, I would say that has been my biggest concern throughout this process, that probably through inadvertence, and probably because it gets overwhelming and it gets intimidating and it gets chaotic, there have been examples of inequality of process that create concerns about unequal treatment. And I think that's a fundamental underlying challenge, especially of small governments, is to stick to those processes. And that's why we have those processes. And that's why we have ordinances, because they govern us. Right? We don't create those ordinances and then say, well, they don't really apply to us. We create an ordinance and say, well, this is the law. This is the government that we created that we're going to now live under. And that's a fundamental tenet of our nation, and a fundamental tenet of our nation that people have gone to war and died for. So I think that it's important that we hold that central tenet in the forefront of our minds, even in small town local government proceedings, that we remain concerned about that. And to that end, I will offer a specific comment, which is that I just heard and understood that the planning board is going to retreat to executive session to decide whether to pursue an appeal that affects the people of Clifton. It's an economic decision, it's a legal decision, and it's a political decision. And I don't think executive session is appropriate. I think executive session is saying we're going to have a private conversation, a secret conversation, that the people don't get to hear so that we're not accountable for what happens in that conversation. So I don't know what's driving that. Maybe there's a good reason for it, and if there is, I would ask you guys to present that to the people of your town tonight. And go for it. If you feel justified in that, then by all means, that's your prerogative. But it sounds to me like it creates the opportunity for people to then be worried about what's happened in that executive session. Was it fair? Was it equal? Was it the right thing that happened? Whereas if you have a public discussion about it, you don't create that potential. So as an observer, as someone who doesn't have a stake in the outcome personally, I would say that seems to me to be a huge problem that's happening here, and maybe creating animosity and ill will and bad feelings where there doesn't need to be any. And where transparency and forthrightness and clarity of process could solve some of the problems that are underlying the current situation.
Who do you represent?
Wait a minute. I need to say something. First of all, executive session, just so everyone knows, there are no decisions made in executive sessions.
Absolutely not.
There are no notes taken in executive sessions, just so everyone knows that. I was back here first.
I'm going to stay sitting down because that's kind of part of why I'm making this comment. Unfortunately, Logan didn't come into the meeting until later, so she didn't have the opportunity to see what happened to me when I was standing and giving my piece. You know, you talk about the inequality here, okay? So earlier tonight, before you got here, because I was a little stressed out and I felt standing up was more stress relieving for me, I was asked to sit down in a fairly direct way by another member of the audience. And so then I had to comply with that sitting down thing. So then tonight, when you're talking about, you know, the equality and the inequality and the perceptions of people or whatever, you know, so we're sitting here and I didn't hear Peggy ask Logan to sit down. Now, you know, in thinking about this whole thing, and I actually have quite a bit more experience in doing all this sort of, I guess, facilitation and negotiation and dispute resolution, stuff like that, than probably most people in this room know. But probably some dispute resolution and facilitation at some point, you know, would be beneficial for the entire group so that we can move forward, you know, extra all of this legal discussion. But Peggy, and I'm not trying to call you out, but you see it from my perspective, it would have been probably better if you're following Logan's line for you to have asked Logan to sit down, though, even though I know he probably didn't feel as dominated or feel as threatened. Exactly, you didn't probably feel threatened when Logan was standing up because, you know, she's not probably as big as I am, doesn't have a lot of voice and this sort of thing. I do actually understand that, and I'm not trying to call you out, Peggy, for that perspective. I'm just trying to make a point here, you know, on this equality thing. The other reason I was standing is because, you know, then I can make eye contact with people, which when I talk to people, I really actually like to do. I don't like to talk around people. And I'm just trying to make the point here. And the different discussions tonight, I definitely think we should facilitate something in the future that would be beneficial for all of us as citizens to kind of come together on at least how we're going to talk about stuff anyway.
All right, Dave, you wanted to say something?
Well, you actually said most of what I was going to say, and that is that no decisions are made in executive session. The executive sessions are only called for limited reasons in the state of Maine, and the one that I understand may happen tonight is for a consultation between the body, that is the select board, and its attorney concerning the legal rights and duties of the body, or pending litigation. That would be something that would be appropriate to talk about in executive session. And again, no decisions will be made, no notes will be taken, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yes, Peggy?
Logan stood up and she stayed right by her chair. And Eric kept coming closer and closer with a louder and louder voice. And I feel that I have the right to come to these and feel safe and not be threatened and not to be told to shut up, which I thought was, and again, I'm being interrupted. I don't, to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable coming, not to be told to shut up. I guess that's all I'm asking, and that was the difference. I mean, that's, I believe me, I want to come to these meetings, but, to be treated so rudely I don't think is appropriate. Thank you.
Yes, Elsa.
I think standing up's a great thing. I also think standing your ground might be a good thing, and I understand your feeling of intimidation. If I walk over you and start being upset, a person feels very affronted. So I would like for people to be able to stand up, be seen and be heard. People can see our lips and our expressions, just sort of stay in place. And I think that should give everyone the security that they need. And yes, we all need to be respected and given the time to finish our thoughts.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't think I believe a lawyer should be coming in last 10 minutes every kiss the last cartoon of it. Say, oh, this is going to be this way, run them off, and sit down and change the whole damn thing. Just shut up and come to the meeting. And watch it or shut up and go home.
All right. Anyone else?
I'm scared, I went pee-pee.
What's that? Yes. All right.
I am just wet. I'm wet.
Madam Chair.
Can I make a motion that we can stand our ground and stand up as long as we stand our ground?
No. You don't make motions?
No.
Madam Chair.
Which one is it? This one? I make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6E in reference to attorney-client consultation.
I suggest that you add to your motion consultation between the body and its attorney regarding legal rights and duties of the body or pending litigation. Can you add that to your motion?
Between the body and attorney regarding legal rights to
Legal rights of the body and pending litigation.
yes, and pending litigation.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
And you have to state the recuse. Do you have to state that?
I think you should say it now before going into executive session.
And of note, Julie Cooley has recused herself and John Williams has recused himself.
So
Do you guys just want to go into the other one?
Yes.